In the previous episode, Israelites, under Joseph's protection, settled in Egypt. They gained their own land and flourished, their numbers growing. But this prosperity did not last long after Joseph passed away. The days of the Israelites grew increasingly difficult as their population grew rapidly. They nearly outnumbered the native Egyptians. The new Pharaoh became fearful, worried that one day they might overthrow him. He decided to enslave the Israelites, forcing them to build cities for him. From that moment, Israelites endured daily labor under the scorching sun and the whip, living a life of extreme hardship. Yet, through sheer resilience, they persevered, and their numbers continued to grow. Seeing this, Pharaoh issued an even more cruel decree. No Hebrew children were to be born. Newborn boys were to be thrown into the river and drowned. Facing the threat of extinction, the Israelites prayed fervently to God. God saw their suffering. On one fateful day, Pharaoh's daughter was bathing by the river when she noticed a small basket drifting toward her. Upon closer inspection, she discovered a Hebrew baby boy inside. She shouldn't have touched him, yet the child's innocence and charm won her heart, and she secretly took him back to the palace to raise him. This boy would later become the great prophet Moses, the leader who would guide the Israelites out of Egypt. The name Moses means drawn from the water. Raised as Pharaoh's daughter's own child, Moses eventually left Egypt to avoid suspicion and settled in Midian, where he married Zipporah. One day, God appeared to Moses and called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and back to Canaan to restore their nation. Initially hesitant, Moses doubted his own ability, but he ultimately accepted the mission. God gave him a staff to demonstrate his power when needed. Moses returned to Egypt with his people and asked Pharaoh to release them, declaring it was God's will. Pharaoh arrogantly replied, "God? I do not know this God. If he exists, let him speak to me directly." Moses then revealed a miracle. He cast his staff onto the ground, and it became a giant serpent with a red tongue. Pharaoh remained unconvinced and called his magicians, who also conjured snakes. But Moses' serpent swallowed all of theirs. This marked the famous struggle between God and Pharaoh. Despite being defeated, Pharaoh refused to yield. He feared losing his labor force and intensified the Israelites' suffering. Angered, God sent 10 plagues upon Egypt: locusts, frogs, pestilence, infestations, and more. Each plague more severe than the last. Blood. Each plague more severe than the last. Frogs. Each plague more severe than the last. Each plague more severe than the last. Darkness. But Pharaoh remained stubborn. Finally, God enacted the last and most devastating plague, the death of the firstborn. At midnight, every firstborn in Egypt, from the royal heirs to ordinary children, and even livestock, perished. Yet the Israelites were spared, as Moses had instructed them to mark their doors with the blood of a sacrificial lamb and remain inside, celebrating the meal. This ritual has been preserved to this day as the Passover. The severity of this final plague forced Pharaoh to relent, allowing Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. On the following day, the Israelites began their journey home, taking with them the bones of Joseph as he had requested, that his remains be returned to the ancestral land. The journey was not easy. They had to bypass Philistine territory, and God guided them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. However, Pharaoh soon regretted letting them go and pursued them with hundreds of chariots. The Israelites reached the Red Sea, with the sea in front and Pharaoh's army behind. In a moment of desperation, Moses raised his staff, and the waters parted, revealing a wide path. The Israelites crossed swiftly, but Pharaoh's army followed. Moses then struck the waters again, and the sea engulfed the Egyptians. After crossing the Red Sea, Moses led the Israelites to the wilderness of Sinai. Exhausted and hungry, some began to doubt, thinking slavery in Egypt was better. Seeing this, God commanded Moses to ascend Mount Sinai to meet him. Moses climbed the mountain and amid clouds and lightning received the 10 Commandments inscribed on 2 stone tablets. These became the earliest codified laws of the Jewish people. They are known as the 10 Commandments.
The commandments include: do not worship other gods, do not misuse God's name, do not make idols, remember the Sabbath, honor your parents, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, and do not covet others' property. These laws not only shaped Judaism but also profoundly influenced Western civilization, such as the concept of the Sabbath, the 7th day of rest, inspired by God resting after creating the world in 6 days.
When Moses descended from Sinai, he found the Israelites had already betrayed God by creating and worshipping a golden calf. Enraged, he smashed the stone tablets, punished the apostates, and destroyed the idol. Later, Moses returned to the mountain and received new tablets. He placed them in a gold-adorned Ark of the Covenant, which became the holiest object in Judaism. The Israelites continued their journey to Canaan, but due to repeated disobedience, God made them wander the wilderness for 40 years. Moses died before entering Canaan. His successor, Joshua, led the Israelites to conquer the Canaanites, reclaiming the land. Canaan, now known as Palestine, became the Israelites' promised land, given by God to Abraham and his descendants. This is the sweeping history of the Jewish people, from hardships in Egypt to Moses' leadership, and their return to the promised land, a history recorded in the book of Exodus, forming the foundation of Jewish faith and culture.